Welcome to Perspectives in Mobile, the news podcast from the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. Join us discussing the world of telecommunications, technology, and mobile innovations. From London, Dario Betti, MEF CEO.
Welcome everybody to podcast from MEF, the Perspectives in Mobile, our traditional appointment to look at some of the people, some of the topics, some of the issues that are making a difference in our ecosystem as a whole. And my name is Dario Betti, I'm the CEO of MEF, and I'm very happy today to show you what is potentially a slightly different perspective format. We go in depth with one person, one company at a time. First, today we have two speakers, but also today we're not talking about a company or their vision about a certain market, but we're talking of a joint effort, a together approach that is happening under the roof of MEF. We are setting up an IoT working group on best practices in IoT, trying to get a better view of what the market can do together. And I'm very happy to welcome two of the leading force behind this group. So welcome to Cedric, Mauvielle, the VP of Global IoT Sales and Partnership at PCCW Global Console Connect. And welcome to Charles Bernard, with multiple hats, I would say, but also the Head of Innovation at Celesys. Both of you, welcome very much to our podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Dario.
Thank you, Dario.
Now, I did introduce you as you are the leading faces, as you're chair, Cedric and Charles. You're one of the main forces of a working group recently set up, a MEF. But why setting up a working group? What's the problem in the industry? What are we trying to solve out there? Cedric, can you tell us what's your view, first of all?
We've been I've been engaged in a lot of different IoT opportunities, working with different IoT aggregators, looking at the ecosystem. And together with Charles, we're chatting on what we've seen that was not really working properly in the IoT wholesale. And for me, using my background in voice IDD and SMS wholesale, I was seeing that a lot of things that were done and achieved in voice and SMS were not available or there when it comes to IoT. And that's where it comes to that discussion we had, and with both of us part of the MEF, thinking why not using the MEF and the forum, the MEF, to discuss these problems and see if we can help to build a better community around that IoT wholesale.
Oh, great. And Charles, so you are adding that your own personal interest and experience. So what would you like to accomplish with this working group as well?
Well, from my experience, I've been connecting to operators for that, and I've seen that there's different technical variation of it, and I think that the idea is to have some streamlined way of connecting and working, and I think that the motivation behind is the easier you get new players in the market, the better you have offers for end customers. I think the idea here is how we can solve the problem of lowering the entry barrier to the business to create new opportunities. That was my motivation behind that. And sharing my experiences and the past with Cedric, I came to the conclusion that we should work together.
Great. We like the idea of working together. We like the idea of lowering barriers and get an industry like IoT to even be more mature. I mean, we're surprised, but IoT is still one of the youngest kids around the block. So potentially there is a bit of order to put in the room. But where do you start? What kind of things you're looking at, solutions to get this level of higher competition, better maturity, and more efficiency, I suspect, in the market? So what would be your recipe here? Cedric, may I ask you first, what are the key points you're trying to address?
So when we look at the market on IoT, the wholesale market is extremely fragmented. What happened is that everything has been growing organically through few organizations or few mobile networks building a spin-off in order to address that market. And everybody is trying to push their own way of working towards the rest of the industry. So a new player has to come and they have to work with one partner to start with. And they realize that what they've done with one partner is totally different with another partner. And that come across different very basic aspects like CDR, like API, like KYC. What is the definition of the type of traffic that's been exchanged? And if people are familiar with voice, there is this definition between IDD, call center, roaming that has been clarified and standardized across the industry, which doesn't exist in IoT, where people trade similarly a low bandwidth IoT device with a travel eSIM for a consumer going to a different country. And today, all this lack of clarity is making it very hard for new entrants to come in. Also for the different layer of the ecosystem to understand, what's happening as the momentum is growing. People start to lose track of exactly what's happening to what has been traded. This traffic, where does it come from? Who is using it? Who is accessing it? And more effectively, how do we maintain, grow, and sustain?
Thank you, Cedric. Maybe, Charles, you can help us there, because as I was taking notes, I know some of our listeners are not necessarily always into the technical or commercial details, but CDRs, APIs, KYC, some of the technical terms. Can you help us to identify what was the CDR? Where are we find API in and KYC in the market of app?
Well, so the CDR is essentially the acronym for call data record. So it's in the scope of billing and invoicing, it's just the details of how much a device has consumed in data or voice or SMS in a specific location with a timestamp. So because that would be transferred from the owner of the wholesale owner of the IMSI to those who bought the IMSI range, so that they can have the useful information to invoice their final customers. So that's indeed, having a homogeneous way of transferring the CDR or even the same information makes the barrier lower. The API is the application to program interface. It's programmable interface. APIs are everywhere. It's just a programmable way to interact with some system, let's put it that way. And in the context of IoT and operators, it's to interact with elements. So one provider can interact with the subscription of the device. And this point is interesting because some people don't provide APIs. Some want API, but or some don't need it. It's so many ways of building around that also in itself needs to clarify what is available and what model it is, not only commercial but technical. And the KYC is a know your customer, and essentially this is not only about the wholesale but also regulation. We're talking IoT devices. Some devices they do need some regulation requires that there's some KYC, some knowledge of who's the customer before an IMSI can be used and a device being sold. Some don't. And then because you need KYC in some cases, you need to find a way to make it across the chain, the capability of identifying who owns that IMSI.
Well, interesting. So the commercial is who's the customers out there and how do we present a bill internally to make sure that we to create commercial solutions, and eventually how do we integrate it into some of the great software stack that we might have. So some of the things we really want IoT to be able to do very fast. Well, I'll stick with you, Charles. What can we do now to get this better? So what is what you're working on right now? Can you give us a bit of an examples of the things you as a group are trying to put together?
So yeah, at the moment, there's so much that we can do that we started at the moment to actually discuss the homogeneity of the what is contained in a CDR. What information we expect different parties to exchange, so it's easier for everyone to be able to invoice and bill their users. And I think that's what we're going to be starting with. The next step, I suspect, would be to go around the different standardized commercial model. So far, the deep technical way of interconnecting is going to come at a later stage, but I think we depend also on the success of the first round.
And as Cedric, may I ask you, once you do these things, we understand that some of your main topics there. How would you define the success of these initiatives? Where would you be happy?
As everything is, once people start to use it, it's where we see that we're on the right track. But even before that, having people being interested to invest their time into helping to these processes, these best practice to be worked on and being improved and being published is also very key. We started, it's a very nascent program that we started with the MEF. And I think that's fresh from the end of 2024. So we're, I think, just starting the working group. And this is where anybody that would be interested to join and to discuss and to also participate is absolutely welcome. Because we have definitely a very ambitious aim, because we want to provide best practice for that wholesale segment of the industry across different items. And CDR being the first one, because we believe it's going to be the easiest one. That doesn't tap into too much standardization or too much practices happening in some of the telcos, and usually it should help any new entrants to understand what is being charged to them and what they can charge to others. There's a lot of different topics mentioned, like API, KYC, how can improve transparency, if there's any fraud that we need to look at and that we need to protect. So yeah, anybody willing to join, it's going to be a success, because it means that there is more than the few people already part of the group that are interested and think this is something that we can tackle as an industry. And then as we start to publish some white papers and we start to improve, to detail some of these guidelines and best practices, if people start to use them and start to incorporate them into their own services or own way practice to work and exchange and collaborate in that industry, that's where I think that we were in the right track.
Great. Charles, we've just heard from Cedric there is an open call for people to come, join and contribute to the work you're doing. If you were to describe your perfect contributors, what are you looking out there? What kind of quality, perspectives, knowledge they should contribute?
I think, yeah, someone indeed with experience, of course, in the industry, but someone who's willing to speak out and have his ideas being heard and being also very precise in what they would want as idea, but someone who's willing to speak out with his ideas. It's because if we have 20 people in the room, but only 2 of them or 3 of them are talking, it's not going to be useful. So someone who's not afraid of sharing his ideas and has the motivation and the belief that, as I said earlier, lowering the barrier is going to make it easier and better for the whole industry.
Thank you. And Cedric, would you like to add something to this call for participants? We've heard Charles saying we want voices, we want ideas. So bring your voice and bring your ideas. Any other specific trait you'd like to add to that?
I think we are looking for people with different profile. People who know the IoT and the wholesale market of IoT will be great. So they can bring different angles, different views that we may not have or that we have not seen before. But also people that may come from the different wholesale, like SMS and voice, that can bring us some of how the voice evolved from what it was 20 years ago to what it is now, is a process we're trying to reproduce in the IoT. So this kind of knowledge and know-how across the wholesale, not only for IoT, but other telecom wholesale activities, is actually good to see and how we can leverage this, not do the same mistakes that were done maybe in the past, and move forward and bring IoT to the same level of what voice and SMS is as an industry.
Well, great. So you already mentioned some of them in passing, but let me get a better view about the next steps. So what's going to happen now? You mentioned, Cedric, that at the end of 2024, you had the first meetings. So if you want to know more information, where could we find it? What's going to be the next things you're trying to focus on and the milestone afterwards? So how long would it take, all of this process as well? So do you have a timeline of some sort of what's going to happen next? I don't know if I should ask, let me ask Charles first, and then I'll check with Cedric. I don't know if there is a timeline, but do you have a magic answer to this?
Maybe I've not been very careful into what has been said at the last meeting we had on that. It's fresh. It's quite fresh. So having a timeline is a bit difficult. I'll say having the first draft by Q2, I think it would be a good target of how to exchange those so-called CDRs, or at least the content. And then the next step would be, I suspect, on the commercial model. I mean, that's what I think. Timeline, I don't have one in mind, so I'll let Cedric to correct me.
So, Cedric, do you have any other ideas or vision or where we take this working?
Yeah, so the first step we're going to take is definitely we're going to communicate more that this working group is there and the activity we're doing there and the goal we're aiming for as part of the group. So we're going to communicate through that this podcast is one of them, but maybe an article, maybe a white paper, maybe more social network activities to get the word out that we are looking to build up a better ecosystem for the whole set in IoT. And then maybe by Q2, we can get the first workable documentation that can be issued. And I think CDR is going to be the first one. But as they did mention, this is not, today we have a list of items that we think should be tackled. But that's not the only list. That's a list that can evolve, that can grow, because we need also to adapt to what maybe new people coming in will tell us that they have different priorities. There's a priority we're completely missing. And that's it's a living organism. So we have already a set of goals and targets. And Q2 is what we aim to get the first documentation out. But the list and the schedule and the agenda is not completely set. And that's why Charles said, getting people in and giving us their voices will give us different priorities that will make it an awesome work. At the end of the year, we can say, look, we have done so much and we have supported the industry, the IoT so much that we have all these new entrants coming in, or even the old entrants, and people are speaking the same language. And that will be, so it's a long journey and we start step by step, and Q2 for us is going to be the first milestone to see if we can, if we're getting there or not.
Interesting. So we heard, apart from this podcast, we're going to see something else in terms of papers and articles from you guys to describe it all. But the key action right now is getting additional voices involved. I heard it from both of you, Charles and Cedric. So one more on the things that we will be doing in case you want to be part of this. There is going to be very soon, it seems, at MWC Mobile World Congress in Barcelona in 2025. It will be March. MEF is going to be hosting inside the sphere and outside some of the event. One of them, and don't miss it, because we're going to try to have a sessions around this working group. So if you want to take part, do reach out. And if you're generally interested, I'll give you my email right now, but you probably know how to reach out, MEF. But in case, Dario, Dario, at mobileecosystemforum.com. So let me know if any of you would like to join and you have a clear path. Well, it looks like they are welcoming with open arms, both Charles and Cedric. So thank you, both of you. Before I let you go, I'd like to thank you for all the work you're doing inside of MEF. And I'd like to stress the fact that both of you wanted to make this a very neutral. You are acting as an industry activity rather than your own. But I've got you here, so I'm going to ask you just a bit of biography, almost at the end of it all. Cedric, can you tell us a bit more about your role at PCCW Console Connect? You have a VP, Global IoT Sales and Partnership. So how did you come to these? You live in some of the partnership and some of the sales, I guess. So that's how your experience brought you to discuss about these.
I've been in the data industry for quite some time, and in the wholesale part of the industry since 2010, when I was in Cineverse, where I learned how the great standardization helped the roaming business to, on the GSM side, to win over the CDMA, because standard was key to build that ecosystem. And then I joined PCCW Global Console Connect, and I was one of their sales leader in voice and SMS. That's where I learned the real good thing about speaking the same language in order to grow business and work partnerships. And when I joined the IoT team, that's one thing I've been trying to work and push on the partnership side, to really get more partners and have the same language, and see how we can grow the business together without limits.
Perfect. And your industry experience, do start. I see in your CV some familiar names. Converse, so USMS, carriers at Telia as well. So you have lead the entire span as part of Cineverse as well, of services and wholesale services. So you know how markets can come and create themselves and how streamlined. And Charles, I mean, equally, same question to you to understand a bit more your perspectives, as our podcast says, on this market. If I'm not mistaken, you told me you were working in operator, so you know from that side. Was that in France? Was it Bouygues? And
so that was my first experience as a roaming engineer, and I think I'm still driven by this a bit of a roaming passion, I would say. And also, one thing that's really is in my mind is the roaming quality of service. Actually, if you think of it, IoT roaming is based on no SLAs because there is no SLA in roaming in terms of time to restoration. So I've always had that back in my mind, and the vision I have is that through those kind of initiatives, at some point we will be able to bring people awareness amongst everyone in the industry that this needs to be addressed. And this platform, this MEF platform, is one of them and this working group could be one of them to get started somewhere that, be aware, you have IoT devices in roaming, but there's no SLAs behind that. And honestly, that's been always in the back of my mind since 2007 when I had first experience in IoT in roaming. And even in my previous experience as a CTO of IoT MVNO would have the same frustration. Now I'm the innovation of Cedric, so a working group where we can bring an innovative solution to the industry was indeed something that I was going to get into.
And I think I need to highlight it how, I don't know if it was by magic and so on, you both worked in the same company at one point. So you both have been, is it Cineverse and PCCW? So I think that there is a history of your collaboration there in the past. But I think thanks for playing this little role and make sure that we understand a bit more of your background. Back to the working group. So as I said, things are going to get started up just now, so this is the right time for you to link us up. Tell us if you want to join, give us your ideas. And one final remark, and I will ask both of you to say why should people join and what you want to tell them. Let's start with Charles. Charles, send your 10 minutes advertising to come and enlist more people to the working group.
No, join if you want to make a difference in the industry and have your voice and ideas being heard.
Perfect. And Cedric?
Same. This is the right time to put your print into a big changing moment for the industry. That this industry is getting mature, and whoever contribute for it is going to, from a career point of view, from a personal point of view, feels good to say that I was part of it.
So you heard it here. If this is your chance, please let us know. As I told you, just out, you got my email or any ways to reach out at MEF. We'd love to include you and your perspective. But for today, it is time to say thank you for today's podcast and for your work at MEF to Charles Bernard and to Cedric Mauvielle. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Perspectives in Mobile. Join us next as we explore telecoms, technology, and mobile innovations. Stay tuned, stay connected, and let's unlock the mobile potential together.